Never miss an episode of the Final Furlong podcast. Subscribe now on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And now, here's your host, Emmet Kennedy.
You're very welcome to the show. We've got a special edition of the podcast for you. I've got two of our favourite pundits, Georgia Cox, former jockey, and one of the best analysts for TPD, Total Performance Data, Adam Mills, alongside me as we get top 10 juveniles to follow for the rest of this season and with a view to classic contenders for next year as well. I'm sure by the end of it, you're going to have 20 horses for your tracker that will hopefully be a license to print money. Georgia, you've ridden a lot of sharp juveniles, a lot of precocious horses. How are you able to tell when a horse you're working is going to be capable of lasting on as a 3-year-old or even being better as a 3-year-old? And are you able to see that physically in how a horse races?
Yeah, I suppose I've spent a lot of my time, 8 years at Haggis's, 2 years at Gstaad's. I have spent a lot of my time with the later maturing horses, but it is an interesting time of the year where you're getting that sort of slide of the early 2-year-olds are done, and the new more precocious, more scopier types are coming through. And I think you can see that within the last week, types that have been overfaced, the likes of Do or Do Not, Lady Aman, Argentine Tango. For me, they're done, and now we're going on to the classier types.
A harsh statement, but a factual one as well, and one we need to remember, especially with the ground changing as well. Adam, from your perspective, there's so many different facets to look at when you're looking at 2-year-olds, but also in racing. Is it one of breeding over sectional times, over speed figures? Is it a combination of all of the facets into one?
Yeah, it's a little bit. It's almost like treating it as 2 seasons. As far as Royal Ascot is 1 season, and then from July onwards is another season. I'm always keen. The times can be skewed, because you can just get some really precocious 2-year-olds who desperately need 5 furlongs, and they can run amazing times. If you think about a couple of years ago, there was a horse who won at Ripon, whose name I forget, but he won at Ripon and went off 6-4 to beat River Tiber in the Coventry. Really fast time. Never repeated it. I'm sorry, I've completely forgotten the name of the horse. But
George Bowie's horse.
It is.
Yeah. Wasn't he switched to Alice Haynes, and wasn't there a massive spat between Johnny Deneen and Jim McGrath and all of our favourite pundits were warring with each other.
That horse is a great example of a horse where you can run a really, really fast time at Ripon, and everyone goes, wow, look how fast he ran. But underneath it, or it never backed up. And that can happen. You can often get winners of the Brocklesby and other early season 2-year-olds who look amazing, but they're really just forwards. So I often look at things, I'm looking for the stride length data. Have we got some great big lump of a horse who's running really well when he probably needs 7 furlongs already? Have we got a horse with a really high stride frequency going around a bend, whereby they've just got an electric turn of foot, get around a bend, somewhere like Wolverhampton, get loose off the front end and win? It's kind of finding reasons why the 2-year-olds won in the data. And then as we get later into the season, you start to look at certain horses. So this year, for example, Italy's a good example. Every single run he's getting better on the data. He's not yet entirely delivering the results, but because each time the stride gets a bit more consistent, there's much less variance in the way he runs, you can start to see actually in a year's time, Italy is probably going to be one of the more forward ones. Whereas an example like, as Georgia mentioned, Argentine Tango, really good at the start of the season, but it's kind of plateaued. There's no further improvement to come, and those who were perhaps a bit backward are now starting to narrow the gap.
That was all fascinating. I particularly liked the bit about Italy. That really made my ears perk up, because I think he's going to be very interesting for the Futurity, although there's a couple of other horses that I think are intriguing for that too. But I couldn't quite help with my small, feeble mind getting wrapped up in who was that horse in the Coventry? So I've got the name. I just want to know, did Georgia remember it?
Oh, so annoying. I literally can see it was the green team colours, was it?
Yeah, the green and gold colours. I'll tell you why you're not going to remember it. It's because the horse hasn't run since 2023 and only had 3 starts for Alice Haynes. Beaten 3 lengths by Action Point in a listed race at Newbury. Beaten 7 lengths stone last behind Task Force. Beaten 11.5 lengths behind Starlust in a Group 3 race on the all-weather at Kempton. A Sadna.
Nobody with that, yeah.
Still a full horse, now a 4-year-old, and maybe he's going to roar back onto the track and Jim McGrath will be proved right and Johnny Deneen will have to eat humble pie. No, Johnny Deneen won that round. That was an epic. It was an epic crash out between all of those guys. I loved it, and I love all of them. Big fan of Jim McGrath, big fan of Johnny Deneen. It's just fun sometimes. Let's get into the top 10 lists, so shall we? I think Adam proposed the idea of going with the the least exciting first and then building towards the best one. But apparently Georgia's list is so strong, they're all the best. So what's your first one, Georgia?
And mine aren't really in order. I'm just going to start from the top, make it simple. The first one I was going to go for is Far From a Dark Horse, but I thought the move in the market and the Fillies Mile this week was worth noting. Gallop mornings are usually Wednesdays and Saturdays, and Legacy Link shortened from 12 to 1 to 15 to 2 on Wednesday, suggesting that she'd put in a shift that morning. When I was at Gosden's, when he said he thought one was a Group 1 filly, that usually meant they'd win a couple of Group 1s. And on debut, she finished third behind Evolutionist, who since has been third in the Group 2 Alpha Centauri Stakes behind Composing and Susie Songs. Okay, those two haven't, last time were disappointing, but she also was behind Lyrics of Life, both of whom were fancied on debut. She went off 6-4 favourite, and Legacy Link took a massive step forward from her first run, where she was 4.5 lengths behind Lyrics of Life. When they met again at Haydock, she improved by 7 lengths to get off the mark, pulling clear as the third. Obviously we haven't been on the grass gallops in Newmarket all year, basically, and I'd say she's gone down the lime kilns and come on again. She's out of Chiasma, who is a full sister to Frankel, who won over 1.5 miles, and she's going to be maturing all the time now.
How many other backward horses, shall we say, or horses they haven't been able to get the work into, are we going to see between now and the end of the season? Galileo didn't run until very, very late in his 2-year-old season, and it was a back-end maiden. Are we going to see horses like that at Newmarket because of the fact they couldn't access the grass gallops?
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, it does make a huge difference. On racecourse side, you do have a water gallop. That's one water gallop. All the big yards like Gosden and Varian and Haggis, that is a long lot to go all the way over there. So the Lime Kilns has basically been shut all summer. It's the least I've never ever not been up the grass as much as this year, and it does make a big difference to these big raw types. But just going up the Albahatri, you don't learn a lot. It's a very, very easy gallop. Anything can look good up there. So yeah, I do think it would make a big difference, and I have actually also got that written down when I've got one of obviously Aidan's in here, and I have put on the end of it, we might not have even seen their trump cards for the classics yet, because looking at their entries, they've got a Dabawi half-sister to City of Troy entered on Friday at Dundalk called Forever Now. So, we probably haven't even seen the main hopes for the classics next year, but from what we've seen so far, this list will be.
Legacy Link is the first one, the Dubawi out of a Galileo mare for Georgia Cox. Is that horse on your list, Adam? And if not, who is?
No, Legacy Link is not on my list. When I first wrote this list on Saturday, I was quite happy with it. And then I went through and went, actually got 9 out of 10 of these are based in France. That might be slightly biased. So I had to redo it and put a few more English and Irish runs in to balance it out.
Never change, Adam. Never change.
No, I can't help it. It's just defaulted. But there are 3 French juveniles on here. And the first one is Ozone, who is trained by the Furlong Yard for Maxime Guillon for the Wertheimers. Really, really impressed by this filly, having laid her last time in the Criterium de Lyon, thinking, this is a great big lump. We'll get her beat with the Graffard thing. Nothing beats Graffard. And Ozone Julie maybe looked very silly. She was an easy winner on debut at Saint-Cloud, had the run of the race in front. Went to the Criterium de Lyon, which is a listed race, on relatively soft ground. That race was actually won by Mangustine in 2022. She went on to win the French 1,000 guineas. Originally, at that time, she was trained by Fred Rossi, who must not be named, but was moved to the Dels Angles Yard and went on to win. But it was a really impressive performance from Ozone, who just ran down Family Secret and Baklava like they weren't there. And there were 8 lengths between the first 3, and the 4th was Special Wood, who's won a couple of times at Lyon. This was just such a good performance. And what I really like is McLeod, who do the data for France Gallop, they don't publish the stride length data, but they publish the number of strides. And at the point she's asked to quicken at halfway under Maxime Guillon, this number of strides stays consistent, 30 or 31 for each of the last 4 furlongs. She's just a relentless galloper. They've got her in the Prix Marcel Boussac, which is a really fascinating race for me. Tiger Tanaka winning that in 2020 basically put me on the map. So I always have a look at the Marcel Boussac. The Wertheimers have got a very strong hand, but Ozone looks the type who's just going to get better and better. She's still growing. I think in a year's time, there's every chance we're talking about her as the Prix de Diane winner.
Whoa. Okay. Daughter of Lope de Vega, unbeaten in 2 at Saint Cloud. And Leon Parlili.
Paris.
I need to watch Acadia an awful lot more. You can do it. You can get access to Acadia pretty easily, but French pronunciation is not going to improve. Okay, Legacy Link is in the tracker. Ozone, Ozone, is in the tracker. Who is your second horse, Georgia Cox?
Okay, I don't really like doing Ballydoyle horses at this time because they all look nice, and then you don't know where they rank within the yard. Sometimes it doesn't matter, but a one-off performance and they can slip down the pecking order and end up a lead horse. But I did really like this Piazza San Marco.
The St. Mark's
another
Basilica.
nice type for, yeah, another nice type for St. Mark's Basilica, giving him a 12th winner in his freshman year. For a big horse, he made his debut early June, where he failed to land a blow and was never involved, very green throughout. I don't know if they were just pushing him to see if he could become a Chesham horse or something, but 96 days later, he resurfaced in a Galway maiden over a mile on soft ground. A maiden Aidan's won with Kyprios and Irish Derby winner Sovereign. He looked to appreciate the ease in the ground. His dam was a listed winner over 10 furlongs. His granddam needs no introduction in Peeping Fawn, who stayed a mile and a half. He looked like a powerful colt with who took plenty of pulling up and will be sure to stay at least 10 furlongs as a 3-year-old. It's a very laid-back type. He improved for the time, the distance and an aggressive ride, being a big raw horse with a big stride. And he looks like there'll be plenty more improvement to come from him. He's got obviously all the entries like they all do, and he's quite a big price for them all, but yeah, he looks like there's plenty of upside to him.
Yeah, certainly on pedigree. Once you start talking about Peeping Fawn being in the bloodline, I'm immediately interested. Piazza San Marco is the second horse for Georgia Cox. Adam, for you?
Well, George has gone with an obvious Ballydoyle one, so am I, and I'm just going to wedge Charles Darwin in. I just think we've all forgotten about what he did at Royal Ascot, have we not?
Yeah.
I mean, I know we haven't seen him since, and there's clearly several 2-year-olds that are kind of missing in action at Ballydoyle, but I watched back what he did at Royal Ascot, and he's won by over 2 lengths. He had 6 subsequent winners in behind him. I mean, look what he did to Wise Approach, Wise Approach may not be the greatest horse that Godolphin have ever had, but he's a genuine 110-plus performer, and Charles Darwin just swatted him out of the way. The form of that race has worked out really well. Surely, when he came out of Ascot, it was almost impossible to decide which one's more exciting, Gstaad or Charles Darwin. Well, Gstaad has held his form, but I think Charles Darwin would probably have done so as well had he stayed fit and stayed running. And although the only reason you can find to criticise him is the absence. Other than the absence, he's done absolutely nothing wrong this season. And whilst he was a precocious 2-year-old who was capable of doing lots of smart things in May and June, there was no sign that his progression was stopping. Doesn't seem like we're likely to see him again this year, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be excited about him next year, because as long as he comes back fit and healthy, he's probably achieved more than most of the 2-year-olds that are currently at the top of the division.
What do you expect from him next season if he's done for this year? I know they'd probably really like to get him to the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint, but let's just say he's done for the season. What do you expect of him next year?
I'm not sure. I think you've said it a few times. It's like Aidan doesn't care about the Guineas, and I think that's probably true. Whether they try to see if he'll stay further and they try and sort of see if they can find a 7-furlong race for him and see what the options are, I'm not sure. In my head, I sort of think maybe he'd develop into a Commonwealth Cup horse. We know he handles Ascot, showed a lot. Didn't strike me as a horse who was sort of screaming out that he was definitely going to go an extra 2 furlongs. So he might well develop into their Commonwealth Cup horse, but I think the Breeders' Cup might be a bit of a mistake. If you're going to go there, presumably fresh off a 5-month absence, go round a tight bend at Del Mar, is it going to suit, especially if he's not 100%, or are they better off just drawing stumps and saying, you know what, we'll try and get him out in something like one of the early Guineas trials over 7 furlongs and see what we've got next year. But if he trains on, surely he's got to be a Group 1 performer at some distance next season.
Yeah, I would completely agree with you. I'm inferring that Aidan O'Brien doesn't really care about the Guineas anymore. From my perspective, I actually would really like George's perspective, because I know Adam agrees with me on this. What do you think is more valuable to Coolmore? Winning the 2,000 or the 1,000 Guineas at Newmarket, or the Coronation Stakes, or St James's Palace Stakes at Royal Ascot?
It's a mixture of things to take into account now. Yeah, he does like travelling them, huge money at the end of the year, going abroad. His recent Guineas winners, have they done that well at Gstaad recently?
That's a good question too.
Probably not. So maybe they're looking at it from that point of view now.
Yeah, I almost think you have to treat I don't think the betting market has cottoned on to this at all. This is one of the reasons why I'm so mad keen about Zavateri. But hey, if there's another horse you like, and there may very well be one from Georgia or Adam that they'll mention in a couple of minutes here that you should be getting stuck into for Newmarket, it's because Aidan O'Brien he's not going to be aiming at that race. I think that they will run horses in the 2,000 guineas, and if they're good enough to win it, fantastic. You've increased the value of that horse. But the real target for them can be the French 2,000 guineas, the Irish 2,000 guineas will come later in the season. You don't have to have them as revved up as you do for Newmarket, and then have them peak for Royal Ascot and then for the rest of the season. I think that makes more sense. And the way that they've trained their horses in that race, Auguste Rodin, City of Troy, Little Big Bear, I mean, they all blew out spectacularly, but they would come back and win races afterwards. So I'd keep the faith with them. Wise approach, by the way, I think may very well win the Middle Park this weekend. We'll know more about it later in the week, but I suspect he's a really good horse. So it's good to be reminded about Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin, Albert Einstein, there's a couple of others on the sidelines as well. It's a real shame, but yet Aidan O'Brien still has so much firepower. What is next on your list, Georgia?
So I've got Romantic Symphony, a well-related, well-backed Charlie Appleby winner at Newmarket. No surprise there. And winning by 3/4 of a length, it wouldn't send anyone running for their notebooks. But this daughter of the Bowie has plenty of size and scope. The way Billy rode her so confidently, hands and heels, was notable and suggests that she's probably well thought of at home. She's a sister to Breeders' Cup turf winner Yabir and to Wild Illusion, Nassau and Prix de l'Opera winner. I just think she'll improve from time and distance. She should stay further next year. I think we might see her again in the Montrose Stakes. And she's 33-1 for next year's Oaks. So, yeah. I don't know if that's an obvious one or not.
No, but this is a horse we only saw at the weekend, and this is another example of back-end maidens, or at least later maidens in the season, and these horses suddenly emerging on the scene. Like, she looked group class winning that race. I was really impressed with her. Where would you like to see Charlie Appleby take her next? We only saw her at the weekend, Romantic Symphony.
Yeah, they said that they suggested she could return to the Rowley Mile for the listed Montrose Stakes. That's 1st of November, and she's already priced. Well, she's priced at 33-1 for next year's Oaks. So it'd be good if we did see her again to get a bit more of a gauge.
I think one of the points that Charlie was making about her is that she's still quite raw mentally. She's clearly very exciting. Adam, your next horse.
Yeah, I'm going to go next with a horse from the weekend as well. I'm going to take a chance that this horse is going to mature, because there's every chance this horse is a bit of a nutcase. But I really like Jim Boyle's Into the Sky. Now, I've looked at the data and I don't blame Pat Cosgrave at all. I think the horse is the one who's just thrown this race away. He's gone a bit to his right, then he's gone to the stands rail, then he's drifted left. I put our stride frequency and stride length data through ChatGPT this morning, and I reckon the horse lost between 5 and 6 lengths at least by the way that he drifted across the track, and that's allowed Words of Truth to get the better of him. Now, the key point is the final furlong. At the point he forges clear, the stride length drops. The average stride length in the final furlong is 0.5 metre shorter than it was in the penultimate furlong. And you think that, 0.5 metre doesn't sound a lot. 0.5 metre over 30 strides is getting on for 15 metres, which is quite a significant drop. He's throwing the ground away, allows Words of Truth to have a target to run at. But this horse only made his debut 3 weeks ago, and he was a 7-length winner on debut. It's really impressive. He's got a lot of maturing to do. You can see by the way he runs that he's keen. And the minute the stall's open, he's like, boom, let's go, Pat. Come on, let's race. Faster, faster. And he's just a little bit nuts. But actually, at the 2 furlong pole, when he forges clear, I thought, well, the result must be wrong on ATR. He must win. Because he's clear, he's away. But he's just too immature. And when he's in front and there's nothing else gone with him, I think he's suddenly realised, like, where am I? What am I doing? I'm all over the place here. In a better race, I think he'd probably run better. I think he just needs something alongside him to tow him into the race a bit longer. Now, it's going to be difficult to get that set up, particularly as a 2-year-old. Not really sure what their plans are, whether they're going to roll the dice and run him one more time or give him a winter off and give him a bit of a break. But if he matures, he has got to be capable of running at the highest level, because I don't think he's got any physical issues whatsoever. He's got a massive stride. He's got a really good turn of foot. He's got really good early speed. He's got the ability to quicken in the later stages. It's just whether mentally he can cope with the occasion. And if he does, he could be a superstar. So I'll put him in. But what I will say is Into the Sky will be one thing. He'll either end up competing at the highest level, or he'll be one of those horses who ends up rated in the mid-80s and just tails off. Because I think his brain is what's going to hold him back, not his ability.
I would completely agree with that. I also, as somebody who backed Words of Truth, and we had him as the YouTube thumbnail for that weekend's episode of the preview, such was the confidence in us. I was absolutely certain Into the Sky had that race won. Absolutely certain he did. And watching it on the replay, I'm absolutely certain Into the Sky is going to win the race. I don't know how Words of Truth gets up. It's really quite something. But Charlie Appleby is talking about working backwards from the jersey for Words of Truth because he's a gelding. Your options are limited with him. Whereas Jim Boyle was talking about essentially working backwards from the Greenham. And like the Greenham will tell them then whether or not he's a Guineas horse. Do you think he's a Guineas horse, Adam?
I think he's a Greenham horse. I'll give you that. That would be, if I was, Jim Boyle doesn't phone me for advice, but if he did, I'd say, okay, well, let's think about that. If you're going to give him the winter to mature, that's the obvious starting point. You've been to Newbury twice. He knows Newbury. He obviously runs well at the track. He's run to a high level as a 2-year-old. Why wouldn't you try it? Because you'll find out in the Greenham. If he finishes in the first 2 or 3 and he's competitive with whatever Juddmonte and the Gosden send or whoever else rocks up there, then okay, we've got a Guineas horse. And if not, then you can start to think, well, we'll perhaps drop back down to listed level or something like that. But I guess you'd have to try. Given the way he ran on Saturday in the Mill Reef, I don't think he stopped because he was tired. I think he just stopped because he was didn't really know where he was. And when he went clear, it was probably the worst thing that could have happened. So actually the Greenham's probably not a bad place to start. I don't think you'd want to run him on the all-weather. And I don't think you'd particularly want to run him around a bend at this stage, because I think he'd be quite hard to rein back if you wanted to try and get him to settle. I think you're much better off having a straight course, point and shoot, and let's find out. But I don't do kind of time form handicapping like some others do, but I reckon he's got to have run to close to 108, 110 on Saturday. So it's not impossible to think he's capable of getting to 115, high one teen, something like that, which would suggest he's at least worth rolling the dice in the Guineas.
Okay. I'm not asking you both to pick apart your selections, but just because we have recency bias and you saw the race of the weekend, Georgia, what did you make of Into the Sky?
Yeah, I saw people quoting him for the Guineas, and I just thought he was all speed. Being out of a Kodiak mare, and Kodiak's done so well as a broodmare sire in the past few years with Believing, and I suppose Charon stayed a mile, the Platinum Queen, Royal Fixation, Lady Aman, all have a fair bit of boot to them. And 2 other Kodiak mares that have won the Mill Reef, Powerful Glory and Wings of War, they both haven't. Powerful Glory actually runs tomorrow in a conditions race at Beverley. He's 3rd favourite out of 5 runners after wind surgery. But going back to the point, he's got ability, and I don't think the Mill Reef's been a good race in the past 10 or so years, probably since Harry's Angel won it. Do you know what I foresee if he goes back to Newbury next year? Do you remember when Perfect Power won with Super Sumi, was it? And he was far too keen. He just got away with it. And then he went to the Guineas, and then they thought, no, he's a sprinter. I sort of see that happening. I feel like he's just got a lot of raw speed, but yes, definitely talented. But, he already had the very thin bit on, which suggests he probably hangs at home, and it has got that mentality.
Can you just explain what that thin bit would do?
Well, it's just harsher. Because it's so thin, it's not as you normally get an egg butt snaffle, which is a lot thicker because they're straightforward. And when it's very thin in their mouth, it's just more sharp and effective. And he's obviously got that for a reason. I thought people were giving Pat a hard time, but I thought even when he was under a straight, Pat's right hand was up as in to try and keep him straight. And I thought he always looked like he was going to hang. And it's also another thing to say, the winners are gelding, and effectively that was an advantage because the most straightforward horse won the race. He raced the most economically. He went up that stands rail, and but they both look like horses that are going to go on and be consistent at a good level.
What do you see as the future for Into the Sky? Do you see him as a sprinter?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, we all agree on that. So it's worth it. It was a perfect answer from Adam. The Greenham is the perfect race for him. Of course it is. What a stupid question for me. Do you see him as a Guineas horse or a sprinter? I gave him a bit of leeway there. No, I think we all agree he's going to be a sprinter, but there's only one 2,000 guineas. And if you don't take the chance of winning it, then you're going to forever regret it afterwards. So at least they're going to know very early on next season whether or not he's up to it. Okay, your next horse, Georgia.
Okay, so I've gone for Bo Echo. It looks like they're going to supplement him for the Royal Lodge. 15 confirmations at this stage, 7 from the O'Brien yard. They're already thinking about the Guineas and working back from there. George trains on racecourse side of Newmarket and consistently uses the gallops that run alongside the Rowley Mile. So his horses are always very natural at going through the dip. Their fluency at quickening out of it. And for me, that's why he won the Guineas with Cachet. I mean, from an unbelievable family. And I always think, I know this is probably not a thing, but I always think there's legacies left in racing. His dam, aristocratic lady, died at the age of 9. Her dam, Dubai Queen, also has passed. And Zumarado has also passed, and obviously it's the dam of Tabawi. So I just feel like the whole pedigree is littered with group performers, and I think he's going to be another one. He beat By the Standard, who's already had finished third on debut at 15-8 favourite and has gone on to win since. It's a maiden that George won last year with Hopewell Rock. Then he went on to win the listed race that Triple Times already won, and last year Luther and Killing Queen, who have both group and grade winners this year. He's been given an official rating of 105 for beating Published, who I also think is going to be a nice horse. And I think they've both got fancy entries, and I think they'll both turn out to be nice horses next year.
I completely agree. I'm a massive fan of him and the other winner that day, Zeus Olympus. They both did a massive favour on the podcast, and we might see both of them this weekend. Adam, I know Bo Echo was on your list.
Yeah, spoiler alert, Bo Echo was the horse right at the top of my list.
Sorry.
No, you go ahead. I just love this horse. I think he's when he won on debut, I got a message from my boss saying, "Did you see that at Newbury? What on earth was that? I'll get the data run quickly for you. Get a piece together, have a look at it." And you look at the data and think, my goodness. And then you watch it and think, God, he's done, not only is he quick, but he's done all this on the bridle. Absolutely magnificent. Goes to Haydock, beats another horse who I think publishes is a potential superstar. I thought he would have won that Solario doing handstands. So the fact Bo Echo has been able to put him to bed as well. He's only had 2 starts. God, I really hope they supplement him and stick him in, because I just think this could be the real Group 1 superstar to be excited about over the winter. And he's just different gravy to most of the 2-year-olds I've seen.
Well, the 2 races that were being talked about were the Beresford or the Royal Lodge. The Royal Lodge would make more sense to me. First of all, it's in the UK, but also you'll get experience of Newmarket with a view to potentially being a Guineas horse next season. Is that where you'd go, Georgia?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Okay. Hopefully we're going to see him this weekend. We'll preview the races for you on Thursday on the Final Furlong podcast. Spoiler alert, he may very well be very prominent on our lists for that, and you should just probably back him for the race now, given both Adam and Georgia have added him to the list. Georgia, your 4th horse.
So sort of another obvious one, but if we're talking about future classic horses, then he has to be mentioned, and that's Raaheeb. His name means formidable in Arabic. I've actually got a few Owen Burrows horses on here. I just like Owen a lot. I mean, at the moment, about 1 in every 5 of his horses are winning, and all above average as well. Like, he's got so many sort of talented horses, and look, obviously he's got big shoes to fill being with his brothers, but the one thing that they didn't do even though were the top class horses, Hookham ran in the Classic, but he finished 5th in the St Leger to Galileo Chrome, but they weren't successful in Classics. And I just think Owens managed to get him out, and Bailly never made the track until, I think, June of his 3-year-old career. Hookham did make it to the track twice as a 2-year-old, getting off the mark on the all-weather in November. And obviously it's a very deep family of Shadwells. And I just think it speaks volumes that Shaker Hissa was there for his debut. We know it's a late maturing family. I don't think there's any pressure for him to go hard this season. It'll be interesting to see where he does appear next. He does have an entry in the Royal Lodge, but could he potentially be a Derby horse for next year? I hope so.
Well, most people would say, full brother to Bailly being a Derby horse. What are you talking about? Couldn't be. Full brother to Hookham as well. So he's absolutely potentially a Derby horse. Even Raaheeb is a really high-class handicapper. So the pedigree's there. The visual impression on debut was fantastic. And I think there was a lot of people who wanted to take him on, but as soon as they saw him in the parade ring, they were like, oh, pointless endeavour. This horse is a machine. He's very exciting. Adam, who is next on your list?
Next on my list is Gstaad. I just think, I look back again today, and I know he's been beaten a couple of times, but he's been beaten by genuinely top-class horses. And if you look for his form, super impressive at Royal Ascot, second in a pair of Group 1s, one of which at Deauville probably wasn't run to suit, but he still finished really well. And if you look at the final 2 furlongs last time at the Curragh, he's 0.03 seconds slower than Zavateri. 0.03 seconds. It's minimal between him getting the better of Zavateri. There's very little in it. His form is absolutely rock solid. He's held it all the way through the year. I really hope he gets a Group 1 because I think he deserves one. There's a risk sometimes with horses like this that they always finish second or third in Group 1s, but we've only had 2 examples so far. So I'm quite happy to stick with him. I also think a little bit of cut in the ground won't inconvenience him, whereas there's 1 or 2 others who might, if we got heavy ground towards the end of the year, it might turn against them. But I think he'll be fine. I think he is the horse by which all the other 2-year-old forms should be judged around, because he's the one who's consistently held his form all the way through the season.
Where do you want to see him next?
Where do I want to see him next? That's a good question. I think Newmarket will suit. I'd like to see Newmarket rather than. I mean, you're starting to run out of options. I don't think Doncaster is the place to go. I think Newmarket would be more suitable, which kind of leaves the Dewhurst as the obvious one. I'm going to be really careful now what I say. If Ryan Moore is back, I'd go to the Dewhurst. If Ryan Moore is not back, as seems likely, I might be tempted to put him away and come back next year. I absolutely worship the ground Sumion walks on, but I think Gstaad needs Ryan Moore.
He's not going to have him back this year, but he will have him back next year. I don't quite understand why he's favourite for the Dewhurst, but it suits me because, for obvious reasons, I suspect a horse that you and I will talk about a little bit later on, Adam. By the way, is the 5-2 second favourite for the Dewhurst, but is still available at 14-1 for the 2,000 guineas. More on that justification to come in a little bit. Just seeing him in the parade ring after the race at the Vincent O'Brien National Stakes at the Curragh, he is such a big, imposing horse that there is going to be more to come from him. I just wonder if he's actually a sprinter as opposed to a 7-furlong horse, but they seem to think that this is what's going to get the best out of him. And hey, if he continues to improve, then he's a serious weapon. I also wonder if he's subbing in for other horses that are not currently available. Where is Constitution River, for example? Where is Albert Einstein? What's happened with Charles Darwin? He would never run in that race, but there's quite a few on the sidelines. Georgia, we're into the top 5. What is your top 5 beginning with?
I'm going back to Empires' Yard, the Lope de Vega filly, Touleen. Owen also trained her dam, who was 4th in Winter's Guineas, and then went on to win the then Group 3 City of York Stakes. She holds a Rockvale entry and a Fillies Mile entry. She was an easy winner of a Newbury Maiden. She backed it up a month later when beating the well-fancied Zanoth in a novice at Leicester on soft ground, posting a strong times that clearly shows she has an engine. I like the way she flew through the line. It'll be interesting to see how she fares in deeper waters, as she looks pretty natural, but obviously probably hasn't beaten that much yet. And I see her as the potential 1,000 guineas candidate, hopefully.
So this is Touleen, who beat Xanthos last time out. So Xanthos cost a fortune. She was sent off a well-backed favourite on debut under Roisin Murphy. She's a breeze-up horse, so she would have learned an awful lot. She beat Classic Curvy, who's come out in one since. If I was doing the top 10 list, I'd have included Classic Curvy. Maybe I'll give a mention of horses at the end. Xanthos was 11-4 on under Roisin. Touleen made her look ordinary. I don't think Xanthos is ordinary at all. That was a very, very impressive performance. Touleen, Touleen, won at Leicester. If you haven't seen it yet, I implore you, watch that race back. Very interesting one for Georgia. That's the first of her top 5. Adam, what is the first of your top 5?
Well, for me, now we're going to wedge in the great Francis-Henri Graffard. I couldn't get a show in without getting at least some Graffard content in. And the horse I really like is a horse called Samangan, who was a winner at the weekend in the pre-eclipse at Chantilly. Josh Wright, who runs the Racing to Profit Syndicate and a few others, messaged me on Friday night. I went, I'm going to Chantilly tomorrow. Any tips? And I went, yeah, in the pre-eclipse, there's this Aga Khan thing called Samangan. He might be hard to beat, but he looks a bit of a lump. So take him on each way with this thing. And then when I was watching the race on my phone on Saturday, I looked at the famous green colours of the Aga Khan. And I thought, oh, no, I've told him to take this thing on. And it was absolutely tanking. He's ploughed through the ground. He's absolutely bolted up. The key to him, he's quite unusual for a French horse. He's by Blue Point. He's a half-brother to Samine, who was quite a really promising 2-year-old about 4 or 5 years ago. But the key to him is he wants the opposite of a French race. He doesn't want it to be slow, steady and sprint. He wants a good, honest gallop. It was a finishing speed of 102% at the weekend. And the faster they went, the better it was for him. And I love the way this horse hits the line. He's like, yeah, go, let's keep going. And the way he finished was superb. He has got to be a French Guineas horse. He's got to be. He's got to be capable of turning into a French Guineas horse. I just love everything about him. On debut, he was kind of a bit of a talking horse on debut at Compiègne. He finished 4th. And at the time, I thought, oh, that was a bit of a letdown. But he just wasn't ready. Clearly wasn't ready for the day. Has come back since, absolutely bolted up in a maiden. And then he's beaten Ceramic and Graft at the weekend. They're pretty solid yardsticks. The formal checks out. The way he finished checks out. He's really exciting. I was trying to sort of do my research today, find out what the plans are. There's only one further entry, which is in the criterium at Chantilly. So he's not in the Jean-Luc Lagardère or anything of that nature. But being by Blue Point, it's not surprising to see he's doing all right over 6 furlongs. And I kind of hope they can stretch him out into a Guineas horse for next season.
Samangan. 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 Straight into the tracker after that. Georgia, your next horse.
I was going to go Revival Power, but I mentioned her last time, so I'm going to leave her. But I do see her as a top-class sprinter. Instead, I'm going to put in the only one that I have from France, and that's Green Spirit. She's a Kingman filly trained by Christopher Head and has always been held in high regard as she's gone off favourite in her only 4 starts to date. I think next she's going for the Prix du Mal and then onto the Marcel Boussac. She's got a good turn of foot. She should step up to the mile. She won the Group 2 last time, Upton Trip, and showed a good turn of foot again to remain unbeaten, although she probably didn't have to improve much as she beat Narissa by a length and a half, and she also beat that same filly in the Group 3 at Deauville before with Princess Petrol Princess back and forth of Emma Banks's that we'd know from England, but she looks like a filly on the up as well.
Unbeaten in 4 starts. Green Spirit, daughter of Kingman out of a Denhill Dancer mare, is Georgia's 6th horse. Adam.
Yeah, my next horse was Green Spirit. I'm glad Georgia got in there first, but I just think Green Spirit is the best 2-year-old filly in France so far. She's done absolutely nothing wrong. The form, you can't really say a lot because the 2 group races she's won, she's essentially beaten the same horse. But what I really liked last time in that over a mile at Paris Longchamp was at the 2 furlong pole, you think, oh, is she in a bit of trouble here? She's going to be nudged along, and it looked like she maybe wasn't going to quicken, and then suddenly the penny drops in. So here we go. Really good finish. I mean, she'll be very hard to beat in the Prix Marcel Boussac. She's got to be hard to beat. Whether she quite trains on beyond that is open to question, but at the moment, she's 4 from 4, and she's achieved more than any other 2-year-old in France.
I like it. Which means, Georgia, we're going for your 7th horse.
I'm going to go back to Owen Burrows. I'm Look, I'm not saying she's a Group 1 filly.
Should we get Owen Burrows on this podcast? Would it be easier to just get him on now? We have his number. We can get him on.
I'm not saying she's a Group 1 filly, but I think there's definitely more to come from her, and that's Calendar Girl. She won the sales race, and I think the only reason why she went there is because she's by advertised, so she carried no weight, and obviously it's a big pot, as I think she'll improve for stepping up in trip now. She just looks like she had, when you watch her 3 runs today, I think she just looks like she has raw ability, and they haven't even really got serious with her yet. And for that reason, she's on the list.
Yeah, that was a really good performance against Song of the Clyde the other day. She was my 10-bet 10 to follow. Started off so strongly with Calendar Girl, and then it just plummeted to a disaster. But I really like her. Even the second run when she was beaten by the Ed Dunlop filly, that horse got first run on her. It was a slowly run race, and I think she's a lot better than that. And I thought she improved for Safi Osborne as well. She's a nice horse. Calendar Girl is the 7th horse on Georgia's list. Adam, your 7th?
Is Publish. If I think Bo Echo is a superstar, I've got to think Publish is at least capable of making his mark at that level. Should have won on debut. No, I think that we'll just leave it at that. Should have won on debut.
Desperate
Let's
stuff.
not talk about that, Colin. But has made amends since, and I don't think he lost anything in defeat behind Bo Echo. You could argue that Publish maybe could have got closer with a straighter run, but that form is going to prove to be rock solid. Continues to improve. The Gosdens don't have a particularly good record in the Guineas. And after this year, whether they'll even bother going back is open to question. But it kind of strikes me as like, is he not maybe a horse for the Irish Guineas? Or would you not look at the way the race pans out of the Curragh and think, Colin Keane knows what he's doing around the Curragh. We could just sit one out, one back and come late. It certainly interests me. I think he'll be in all those big races. I kind of see him as heading to a Guineas of some sort. I'd imagine he'll end up in the St James's Palace, and then from there, kind of the season rides itself. But he wasn't that far behind Bo Echo. I don't think he'll reverse the form, but if Bo Echo is as good as I think he is, then Publish can't be that far behind.
Ravens Pass, Kingman, Too Darn Hot, Field of Gold. You can keep backing them if you want, but they keep getting turned over. I'm sure they'll be lining up with Publish next year, Adam, because it's only one Newmarket Guineas. You got to give it a go, but it's another reason why I like a certain horse that has not been mentioned yet. Georgia, your 8th horse.
This isn't just really one horse. I just thought it was an interesting point to make. But Alan King has 9 2-year-olds in the yard. 2 of them are entered in the Futurity. Spyce by Too Darn Hot, second on debut in that valuable maiden at York. To the No Nay Never of Aidan's, and went on to win a competitive maiden at Yarmouth, beating the 650 grand purchase of Gosden's in Lightning Thunder. He also has D-Day Diva by Churchill, third on debut to the well-fancied, again, Simon Crisford Santos at Newmarket, and then went on to win at Sandown and could be well worth a shot at group level. And also Pompette. He was second to Baid's brother, learning to race properly. He did have a hood on this time and should stay further in time and should give Raaheeb a form boost at some point. And I just thought it was interesting that Alan King's got 9 2-year-olds in the yard, and those 3 will all definitely go on to win more.
Okay, can you give me the names of those horses again? Because for some reason my earpiece didn't pick them up properly.
Spyce is Spyce, the Too Darn Hot, D-Day Diva, and Pompette.
Okay, and of those horses, which one is the most likely to end up on your list?
Probably Spyce, the Too Darn Hot.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to put him into the list.
And it's also interesting that Alan King has no interest in going to the yearling sales right now. He buys them all from the Breeze Up sales, as where he got Trushan from. And yeah, like I said, 9 2-year-olds in the yard, and these 3 will definitely win more races.
Alan King Juveniles.
I know.
Such is the world of racing that it's easier to compete with Godolphin and Juddmonte than the might of Willie Mullins at Cheltenham. Adam Mills?
Next one for me is Italy, and I'm putting him in because I think he's just one of those. He shouldn't probably be doing what he's doing. He's getting better with each start. He's just finding that the 2-year-olds are slightly ahead of him. But I really have liked the last 2 starts. I thought have been so much better. And he just looks like he's already like, give me 10 furlongs and I'll show you what I can do. I just think he's improving with every start. He's got 2 entries coming up in France, one in the Jean-Luc Lagardère. That won't suit. Don't go there, Aidan, because I just think the way they race down the hill and the way that the pace develops might catch him out. Wait 3 weeks, go to the Criterium International at Saint-Cloud. That's the race that he's entered in. That's the race that he'll win.
Is that the 10 furlong one? Or the mile one?
That is the mile one.
Okay.
But by that stage on the 26th of October, 1, it's always a small field, and 2, it's always a bog.
Yeah.
But Soumillon is absolutely mustard at Saint-Cloud when it's heavy, because he's the genius who works out, this is where I need to be to get in the best position to get the stands rail first. Get that stands rail on heavy ground at Saint-Cloud, you could only have 2 legs, you'd still win. There's such a strong bias there. You just got to get across to it. That's the race for him. If we assume he wins that, then he's got to be thought of as 10 furlongs to 12 furlongs, Derby type. But I just like with Italy that although he's been beaten, with each start I can see the progress being made. And I think he's just going to continue to take steps forward. Whereas I think 1 or 2 of the horses that have beaten him because they're speedier 2-year-old types, rather than because they're going to develop into the horses for next year.
Yeah, I think Georgia was nodding along with that as well. I completely agree with that. He reminds me a little bit of Anthony Van Dyke in that he's going to come to the Derby really battle-hardened, lots of experience and the class, and that might all stand him in good stead on the day. 10 furlong races, the world is his oyster then as well. That trip is just going to suit him a lot better. I suspect he's a horse who's had physical issues, but the fact that he was backed into 7-2, usurping a Godolphin horse who had beaten him the time before, there was massive confidence in him that day. And the Coolmore team wouldn't hear a defeat for Gstaad. So somebody liked Italy, and he ran a nice race. And I suspect the 2 horses who beat him are very talented as well. Georgia, your 9th horse.
So another recent one for me. Last week at Donny, I thought Pathein, the St Mark's Basilica for Ed Dunlop, and Lynham for Rafe Beckett. They drew a long way clear of the well-fancied Evans favourite who had already ran Del Maro for Appleby. The winner, Pathein, looked like a solid horse who galloped out strongly through the line, and his future is definitely all in front of him. The second also shaped well with plenty of promise, 425,000 purchase. He came off the bridle a long way out, but found plenty for pressure. I'm not sure it's enough to put Rafe Beckett back in the good books with Kia, but it was definitely promising. And they look like 2 that would go on. I'm not saying they're going to be proper group horses, but I just think they've definitely got a good future ahead of them.
Okay, and your 9th, Adam?
I had to put this name on because I thought your head would explode if I didn't. But Zavateri's got to go on here, hasn't he? He's got to go on here because look what he's achieved.
Should be the last horse you're mentioning, but all right, we'll let you away with it.
I must say that while we've been recording, I have changed my order slightly because I thought, as Georgia took Boecker, I didn't want to go in with that. But yeah, Zavateri's got to go on because look what he's achieved. Look what he's achieved. He's improving with every single start. He's won a Group 1. And I think whatever you think about his Guineas chances, I think we can all acknowledge if he was trained by Aidan O'Brien, this thing would be like 3s. He'd be the second coming. And it's almost a sort of a bias in the market purely because of his connections. But everything he does gets better. Gstaad is the horse I said we need to build the form around. Well, he's beaten him.
Yep.
He's done everything right. He was really impressive at Newmarket. He was good at Goodwood. He's gone into Group 1 company and looked like a natural. Imagine what he'll do if he trains on. At what point is the racing world going to go, actually, this lad's top class. Fair play. I think he's absolutely mustard. Can't find any reason really to fault him. And I really hope that he trains on, because if he trains on as a 3-year-old, he's going to be the kind of horse that racing needs to get behind.
By a Group 1 winning miler at 3, who was placed in a Breeders' Cup mile at 4, out of an Aga Khan bred mare who was unraced, but has a sibling who won in Group 3 company twice in Australia over 9 and 10 furlongs at the age of 6 wearing headgear. And this fella is unbeaten in 4 starts. He's the first horse since Ivawood to win the July Stakes on the back of only 1 run. He's the first horse in over 11 years to carry a penalty to victory in the Vintage Stakes, beating Humidity, who comes out and is awarded 2nd place in the Solaro Stakes behind A Bit of Spirit who was kicked into touch by Morris Dancer in the listed Stonehenge Stakes, who Zavateri gave weight and a beating to and came from the back of the field to do so in the Vintage Stakes. And then he takes on the Coventry winner, who is now race fit, having just finished 2nd in a Group 1 in France against Venetian Sun, who he was giving weight to, and his connections wouldn't hear of defeat for him. And Zavateri beats him, coming from off the pace on a pace favouring track. Bred to get better with age, bred to get better with racing, and you can still get 14-1 about him for the 2,000 guineas. Hey, can't force you to back him, and you can take him on all you want. You can keep taking him on. You're just going to watch us counting the money as we're going, we told you! Georgia, who is next on your list?
Yeah, I don't think there's much more you can say. You can't have a list without him, can you?
Is Zavateri your 10th horse?
Yeah, I just really hope that we're next year when we're watching. I hope next year we are watching Zavateri and Bo Echo battle to the line in the Guineas. That would be great. Different connections, different stories, two nice horses, you know.
Just looking at him, because I made the whole point about the grass gallop not being used, and so we're going to see a lot of horses emerge slowly but surely that could be superstars next season that we don't even know about yet. Looking at him physically, and you've watched his replays back since, do you think his horse will do better at 3? Or is it possible that for some reason he's just more physically developed than his rivals now, and so we're going to see the best of him as a juvenile? And maybe we should temper expectations. Or do you think his horse, Zavateri, will get better with age?
I think, like you said, you've already pointed out that his pedigree all suggests that he is going to get better with age. You know, he's not the tallest and rangiest of horses, but that doesn't mean that he's not going to train on. He is compact and he is solid, but he's not small by any means. So if I was describing him in recent years, he looks a bit more like a Chaldean sort of type, you know. But, you know, yeah. I hope he goes on anyway.
I will happily take a Chaldean type. Chaldean won the Dewhurst and he won the 2,000
just
guineas.
That model.
Yeah,
just that model, I think. But hopefully he goes on to do more.
Yeah, hopefully, because Chaldean's fell off a cliff once he met Paddington. Adam, your 10th horse.
Last one on the list. And it's really only in the last year that when you get a new job like this, you start to appreciate racing around the world. And the last one on the list is a 2-year-old in America called Ted Naffey, who's trained by Todd Pletcher, 2 from 2, won the Grade 1 Hopeful Stakes on his second start at Saratoga by 8 lengths. And the horse he beat in second is a horse called Butane, who's a Bob Baffert horse, who on Butane's debut at Del Mar, he was sent off the 100-30 on favourite, and he won by 4 lengths in a canter. And Ted Naffey kicked him to one side like he didn't exist. 1.25 seconds faster than Butane over the final 3 furlongs to run out an 8-length winner with the fastest run-out speed in the field, the highest stride frequency, and an average stride length over 24 feet. This thing is just an absolute tool of a 2-year-old, and he's taken what is probably a group class performer and gone out the way, son. Absolutely hacked up in one of the most impressive juvenile dirt performances that I've seen. He could be anything. And whilst we've spent a lot of time talking about the UK, Ireland and France, I think this 2-year-old could be one to take the world by storm next year. And if he builds on that Hopeful Stakes performance, he could be an absolute monster.
I saw this live because the New York Racing Association do their live stream on YouTube. So it's brilliant. You can watch all the racing from Saratoga and the full Fox coverage behind it. They were blown away by him. So do you think this is the horse they all have to beat in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile?
Yeah, I do. I mean, there's lots of good juveniles around. There's a horse called Brandt, who is very close to making this list, who's done some nice things in California. You know, the American 2-year-old season takes a little while to get going. So it's only sort of around August time that they really start to develop a pecking order. But if this lad gets a good draw, I mean, he's got to be hard to beat. He's just got to be. Because I think Bob Baffert would have got into that Hopeful Stakes thinking, Butane is one of my better chances. I've shipped him in. He's gone off 6-5 favourite. He's absolutely hacked up on debut. And at the 2 furlong pole, John Velasquez just sort of has this cheeky look of like, I've got your number, son. You're done. And away he goes. And just the final furlong is just something to behold. 12.2 seconds for that final furlong. He's absolutely hacking away. He's basically 6 lengths faster than anything else over the final furlong. And this race has a long history. If you look in recent years, you've got Jackie's Warrior, Gunite, Forte, Shanghai Bobby, I wrote a little piece about this guy, and someone messaged me and went, "Your left off Secretariat won this," and I was like, "Well, I'm not going to be the one to put in."
Back to the 1970s.
This race was won by Secretariat, so lump on Ted Naffey. But it was incredible. 8 lengths clear, and US Grade 1 races tend to be pretty competitive. And this lad was just miles clear of the rest, thunders through the line, took ages to pull up. I mean, if he gets a clear run in that Breeders' Cup Juvenile, I won't be keen to take him on.
I'm glad you mentioned him, because I didn't think we were going to talk about any international, aside from the obvious French horses, but Ted Naffey's a horse that hopefully we'll be talking to the Triple H Racing podcast boys about in our Breeders' Cup specials between now and the Breeders' Cup itself. And he was devastatingly impressive. You can watch it on YouTube. Just type in Ted Naffey, TED space NOFFEY. He's an into mischief. I have a feeling he's a rig. Can you fix that, Georgia? Or is that it then? Are they just stuck with a non-descended testicle for life?
Yeah, I don't think you can fix that. I think once they're a rig, unfortunately. Like, that can actually have complications. Like, that can cause them pain, and they might have to have it sorted out. But, some of them it doesn't affect, so.
The only way of fixing it, I think, is the dreaded gelding operation.
Cutting one out. Yeah, well, you can leave one in there, I think. But yeah, anyway, yeah.
If he's this good, imagine how you would feel getting punched and then you have to go around onto the football field. Well, this guy's doing that and crushing his rivals. So if they do manage to fix that, then he'd be untouchable. All right, that is the 10 from Georgia and from Adam. I'll just throw in a couple myself, and I'd actually really like it if the team have anything to say. None of you mentioned Benvenuto Guilini, who I thought was really impressive. He's gone well past Dorset. If you've got Dorset still in your tracker, take him out now. Take him out now. It's not just that he's become a little bit disappointed. Take that horse out. He's not good enough. Which is sort of funny, because Dorset was a very impressive winner, and he was backed as though defeat was out of the question on Benvenuto Chiellini's debut. But he shaped really well that day and showed the benefit of that experience by then bolting up in a Killarney maiden when he was backed as though defeat was out of the question. That maiden is a race that Aidan O'Brien won with Anthony Van Dyke back in the day. The race he made his debut in behind Dorset was the same maiden won by City of Troy. And the Group 2, which is going to be a Group 1 next season at Irish Champions Weekend, which will be interesting. 2 juvenile Group 1s for colts over a mile and 7 furlongs in the same weekend. Interesting. But Aidan O'Brien has run Australia, Mogul, Auguste Rodin, Diego Velasquez. Delacroix was beaten in that race a year ago. All subsequent Group 1 performers. And he won it easily. Now, he beat one of the horses he'd already beaten before, but that horse had come out and won since for Joseph O'Brien. There's a couple of other horses. The 2nd and 4th one from his Killarney race. He's by Frankel, out of a multiple Grade 1 winner and newspaper of record. She's a Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf hero. The full sister Giselle won the Lingfield Oaks trial. She's a head case, and she doesn't really settle. He settles much better than her. He looks like a much more professional horse. And he's already got a time form adjusted rating of 120, which would make him very, very hard to beat in the Futurity if that's where he lines up. I like him an awful lot, but neither of you mentioned him. Any specific reason why, Georgia?
We spoke about him last week when I was on here, because I did like him. I thought he was a really likeable horse. Like you said, much more straightforward than his sister. But obviously, it was obvious that he didn't beat much with a disappointing just 4 runners in the race. I think he'll be one for the French Derby next year, will he?
Possibly. Yeah, I wouldn't ignore that idea at all.
Remember, we were talking about the fact that it was interesting to see when Montreal would turn up, because that was who Super Sumi was supposed to ride, wasn't he?
Yeah.
As the first string, and then obviously he bolted up, and you're thinking, well, how good is he?
Yeah, he's the See the Stars who'd won by 8 lengths in his previous start, and Sumion was due to ride him on the day, but then he came out. So Montreal is absolutely one to keep in mind. But to be fair, Benvenuto Chiellini is the one who's gone and done it, so he's making the list as a potential classic contender for next season. Maybe French Derby, and that's a race that Coolmore take an awful lot more seriously now than they did before Camille Pizarro and St. Mark's Basilica winning for them in recent years. Adam, yet to be convinced?
Yeah, I mean, look, this is a really hard exercise to do. I had another 15 names that I considered.
Yeah.
And didn't put on the list, and he was one of those. It's just for me that race was a bit of a joke, because there are only 4 runners in it. The one horse who would probably have given him a race was a non-runner. So I just can't be sure. That being said, I wouldn't want to take him on necessarily if he rocks up at Doncaster. There'd be no surprise to see him go and do that step. But it was just that I thought the horses he beat were a step below. And he beat them easily, as he should do, but we just can't be sure from a 4-runner race.
Okay, this is gut instinct. I might be completely wrong about this, but I have a feeling Isaac Newton's going to turn out to be a really good horse. He's by Camelot. Dam is a German listed winner over 7 furlongs and a sister to Charlie Appleby's multiple Grade 1 winner, Master of the Seas. He was bought by Coolmore for €380,000. He made his debut in the same race that Aidan has introduced, the Line in Winter, Henry Longfellow, Capri, Mendelssohn. Alrifa was second in that race back in the day for Joseph O'Brien before going on to be now a multiple Group 1 winner. Second on debut behind his odds-on stable companion New Zealand, who had the benefit of race experience and fitness. He was ridden from the front. Again, the Curragh is a pace-favouring track. Isaac Newton was ridden handily, but he had to make up ground, and I thought he did so quite well in the closing stages. The third horse, Action, has gone on to win since. He's a brother to Lambourne, and he's an interesting horse himself. But Aidan then sent him to Goodwood, and what I find interesting about this is he was the only horse he sent to Goodwood for the final day of the glorious meeting on the Saturday. And they went for a novice over 7 furlongs, and he was backed as though defeat was out of the question, sent off a very strong odds-on favourite with a whole different strand of form lines to be taking on, and he wins. Now, it wasn't a very glamorous, showy performance, but he did it quite nicely over 7 furlongs. The second has won since. The third, the fifth, the ninth have all come out and won since. The ninth, Aspect Island, is one you should put in your tracker. He bolted up on TalkSport 2 last week in a nursery, which happily we tipped him in. That form's got a bit of substance to it. I think there's a couple of horses in behind that haven't run yet that connections think are going to be future winners. So even look at the horses in behind that day for potential winners going forward. I thought he won despite not liking the track at Goodwood. He'll improve for going up and trip. He'll improve for race experience as well. He would be very high on my list of potential Derby horses. And just as a side note, Precise won the Big Fillies Group 3 there, not at the glorious meeting, and has now gone on to win a Group 1. Aidan O'Brien has taken horse. Dreamy, it didn't really work with. She did win a Group 2 afterwards, but then sort of derailed, and we haven't seen her since she was beaten in the Fillies Mile. But Rhododendron was sent to Goodwood for a novice. Alexandrova was sent there for a novice. There's another high-class filly that Aidan gave experience to at Goodwood. I think this could be a very, very nice horse, and I suspect that the cambers and the undulations of Goodwood and the tight turns, all of that is beneficial to his experience. Given his pedigree, given who he's trained by, I think he could be a really interesting one for classics next season. I expect to see him in a classic trial at beresford, and we might see him in something like the Beresford between now and then. But by the way, just on a quick note on the Beresford, Aidan O'Brien has used that race. Last year, Lambourne and Trinity College were last and second last. Multiple Group 1 winners, Luxembourg, Japan, Saxon Warrior, Kew Gardens, Capri, Irish Derby winner Sovereign, Irish Derby runner-up Adelaide River, all use the Beresford as a platform to go on. So keep an eye on whoever he runs this week. I had Boeco on my list. I had Zavateri on the list. Constitution River is a horse I'm becoming a little bit concerned about because we haven't seen him since his most recent success at the Curragh when he was good on the front end. But the Dam is a sister to multiple Group 1 winner Wonderful Tonight over mile 4 and a mile 6 for David Minussier. He's by Wootton Bassett. He looked very, very exciting, finishing second to Distant Storm in that incredibly hot race at Newmarket. The form of that is unbelievable. He's gone on himself to win pretty impressively at Galway and then go on and win at the Curragh. I just don't know why we haven't seen him since then. They talked about the National Stakes. There was talk of the Beresford. He didn't run in the National. He's not in the Beresford. That's a slight concern, but hopefully he'll be back sooner rather than later. He's a very, very exciting horse. The two fillies that interested me, Classic Curvy. I'd be very interested to hear what Georgia has to say about her. She's a sister to Legatissimo, triple Group 1 winner for David Watchman. She's by Siuni. Drifted alarmingly on debut, but then finished second to Xanthos, who's a breeze up horse, so she would have more experience. Despite drifting out to 20 to 1, she ran a really good race to be second. She's then used the benefit of that experience to win second time out. She beat a very well-bred, very well-backed Aidan O'Brien filly called Amelia Earhart at Doncaster last week. She has an entry in the Fillies Mile, which suggests the Varian team think an awful lot of her because they tend to be sparing with those entries. She's a horse I'm very interested in going forward, Georgia, Classic Curvy.
Yeah, she looks like another nice type. And I think you've mostly said everything there, to be honest.
Okay.
It is hard to gauge what everyone's thinking of them yet, especially with the Aidan O'Brien horses, like you said. Going back to that, I do think he likes to travel horses to England early on in their career if he thinks next year they are going to be coming over a lot, like he did with Scandinavia, like he did with Paddington. You know, they didn't even win those two when they came over as a 2-year-old first time. So it's definitely an exercise that he likes to do with them for the future. And yes, Classic Curvy as well. Looks like a one ahead for the future too.
Yeah, Lake Victoria is another one, of course, he did that with early on last year. Adam, for you, any thoughts on Classic Curvy?
I like Classic Curvy. I think this is one of those seasons where there's every chance we haven't seen the Guineas winner yet.
Yeah.
And there's every chance that the Commonwealth Cup winner might be something that is just, we just kind of slipped under the radar and we haven't spotted yet. So there's loads and loads, when I was doing the research, it's a kind of once race maiden winners or novice winners. If you look at the entries for Newmarket in the next couple of weeks, it's full of horses who've won in novice races, who've got kind of visually impressive, but you have no idea what the forming behind them is worth. So don't let anyone put you off. It's very easy that we can all sit here and think, right, in a year's time, Bo Echo's going to win the Guineas and Zavateri's going to win a Group 1 and Charles Darwin's going to come back and win the Commonwealth Cup. And if we did this in a year's time, we'd probably all sit and watch this back and go, what the hell is that horse that won the St James's Palace? I've never even heard of it. Or, what do you mean this thing won the French Guineas? No one knows. So it doesn't feel like there's one particular superstar. Whereas in perhaps years gone by, we've looked and gone, right, that's the horse that's going to be the superstar next year. Whereas this year, it feels like there could be 10, 15 of the horses we've discussed who are Group 1 performers. So Classic Curvy is just one that's in that category of could be anything, which I know not everyone likes that phrase, but until a horse gets beaten in group level, you really don't know how good they are.
That's a really eloquent way of summing it up. There's no City of Troy that towers over this division. You're still waiting. We don't even know who's going to be European champion 2-year-old. I have a feeling I know who it's going to be, but what if he gets beaten in the Dewhurst? Then he's not. It'll be intriguing. And I wonder, is there a classes system, I wonder, in the Pattern Committee? Do they want to be giving Eve Johnson Houghton the European champion 2-year-old? You're going to have to. Come on, Zavateri. The last one for me is Diamond Necklace. She's a sister to Magic Wand, Irish Oaks winner Chiquachita, who was a complete psycho. The Ian Williams high-class stare enemy, and a French Group 3 winner for André Fabre called Philomene, who was a Godolphin horse. She's by St. Mark's Basilica. Looked really smart on her debut when she came from off the pace of the card to go and win first time up. She cost 1.7 million, and she looked every inch of that when winning under Christophe Soumillon in a listed race on Irish Champions Weekend at Leopardstown. I think she's a hugely exciting filly, but it's not. We've been saying this for a while. We've been saying this since her debut, that she's a very exciting filly. But she's now 9-4 for the Fillies Mile. So it makes sense to not necessarily be telling you get stuck in, but I think she's a very, very nice horse. Okay. What is the horse you are most excited by that you have talked about in your top 10 list? What is the one horse that you would say is number one? Georgia.
Probably Bo Echo.
Adam.
Just because I think both of them are, the first two are going to prove it to be good form. So yeah.
Okay.
I'll go with him.
Okay. Bo Echo, number one for Georgia. Adam?
Oh, Bo Echo. Yeah, Bo Echo, definitely.
Do you think Bo Echo would beat Zavateri?
Yes.
Georgia?
Look at Emmet. It's like I've kicked one of his cats over a rugby ball.
They all improve at different rates. Like, it would be nice to go and ask Aidan for his top 10 and put his horses in order. That would sort a lot out. But yeah, I do hope that Bo Echo is going to be the real deal.
I haven't had the courage to ask Aidan O'Brien this question, but years ago, I remember reading, when Chris Cook worked for The Guardian, he wrote a piece about a dossier that Aidan O'Brien compiles for the Coolmore Mafia, the Coolmore Mob, the lads, before Royal Ascot. And this was the Royal Ascot where Duke of Marmalade and Henry the Navigator and Yates and everything was just crushing. They were all dominating. And the point was that he had told Chris what the numbers of the horses were, but hadn't said who's number 2, 3, 4, and I think 6. So the others had all won at the lower levels. So now you just had to work out, well, who's strong in the betting and who's yet to run that they think is a certainty. It was an interesting little exercise, that. But yeah, Aidan O'Brien, I don't know if he still does it, but he certainly did back in 2006, 2007. He would compile a dossier of the horses that he thought had the best chances. Could you imagine getting your hands on that? Could you imagine getting your hands on that list? It would be almost as valuable as Paul Ferguson's Jumpers to Follow, which is available now on weatherbyshop.ie and weatherbyshop.co.uk. And you can get £3 off your purchase of Paul Ferguson's Jumpers to Follow. I know we're switching it up massively so in a flat podcast. but hopefully you're a big jumps fan as well. FFJTF2526. It is scrolling on the screen for you right now. FFJTF2526. Use that promo code at checkout and you will get access to one of the best guides for the entire National Hunt season. Paul Ferguson's jumpers to follow, stats guides for the big races to come, pedigree corner, French horses to follow. I'd love to say Adam Mills wrote that. He should have probably. X-pointed pointers, major horses to follow for the new season. And Paul will be back on the podcast for another special very, very soon. But make sure you get your hands on Paul Ferguson's jumpers to follow and use our promo code because it helps out the Final Furlong podcast as well. £3 off your purchase of the print copy, the digital copy, and the print and digital bundle. Okay, Bo Echo is the leading horse for the dynamic duo. Obviously, it's Zavateri. Obviously, it is. But we shall see what happens between now and then. Any other business before we wrap up? Anything else you want to discuss? Almarac conquering all, winning the Champion Stakes after his very impressive performance at Ayr, or something else, Georgia?
Yeah, Almarac was very impressive. I think he'll improve from a step up in trip. He's clearly very, very talented. After he won the Fielding Stakes, there was talk of him as a Dante/French Derby horse. So I don't actually know what the setback was or if they pulled stumps because they are cautious of keeping him on soft ground. But you'd like to think he'll come on from the outing being a bit ring rusty, and he'd definitely be competitive in group company. I mean, they're talking about the Champion Stakes already, aren't they? He's been cut from 25s to 12s. Back in 2020, Adabe won that race at Ayr and went on to win the Champion Stakes, but that was as a 6-year-old. He had already finished second to Magical in the Champion Stakes the year before. So it would be a big ask, but he definitely looks progressive.
I can't wait for him to beat Ombudsman. I cannot wait for him to crush Ombudsman. I don't know if he can do that, Adam, but I was really impressed with him at the weekend. It seemed like Oisin deliberately missed the kick. At least if he didn't, he made up for it with the way the race panned out. He was able to see that there was a mad gallop going on. He rode him with confidence. He rode him like he was the best horse in the race, and now we know why.
Yeah, I think he rode him like he's the best horse in the race. I'm not sure it's a deliberate miss of the kick, but I don't think it did him any harm either. I think it's probably a good thing to be away from that pace. He's obviously interesting in the Champion Stakes. I like the angle with the Ascot of looking at horses who perhaps haven't had the busiest campaign. I think it sometimes works in their favour. If you think back to the likes of Bayside Boy, no one would think he was going to win on Champions Day, but actually missing the bulk of the season, coming back with a gentle reintroduction, peaking in the October is the key to it. How often do we go to Champions Day and the form from June just doesn't translate, particularly if the ground turns soft? He's got to be of interest. He's got to be. I am not going to put on record on that I think he'll beat Ombudsman because Peter Michael might be able to find my address. So I'm not putting it in. Just going to say that he's definitely got an each-way chance in the Champion Stakes, if that's where they go. But I think we're all missing the elephant in the room. My good man Calandagan is going to the Champion Stakes, and Almeric will not beat Calandagan.
Ombudsman won't beat him either. Can I get you to admit that?
He's a young pretender of the race, isn't he?
The problem is, Ombudsman is going to be ridden in a way that will be versatile. Calandagan has to be ridden a certain way. So I think those two set a very high standard. But my concern is I don't want Calandagan to be in front of Ombudsman before the final furlong. Because I think Calandagan is best when he's got a nice pace to aim at. He can just run them down. There's very few holes in Calandagan's form. He's absolutely rock solid. He should have won the race last year. They won't make that mistake this year. Ombudsman and Calandagan are probably £10 or more ahead of everything else. So this race has got to fall a certain way for something else to do it. It's not impossible to think that Almeric will take another massive step forwards and he might be a better horse in a better race. But at this stage, Almeric has beaten King's Gambit by 2 3/4 lengths. So at some point, you've got to look and say, what price would King's Gambit be in a Champion Stakes? Any price you want. Absolutely no chance whatsoever. So it's a big step up, but the unexposed angle is certainly something to take in mind. And I don't think it's a coincidence that we haven't seen Calandagan since July. I know they talked about other options, but I think they actually looked and thought, you know what, a break will do him good. Ombudsman didn't go to Leopardstown. Bearing in mind Aidan O'Brien isn't 6 feet tall, I don't think the Gosdens were frightened. I think they took the view, maybe if we want to win at Ascot and we want to get the champion trainer, we can't have another race. Because if you look at the champion stakes, the horses that do well in it are the ones who had an easier season.
Be some crack when Ombudsman gets beaten and maybe Kieran Schumacher comes in for the ride on Delacroix on the QE2 and he's blowing kisses to the crowd. The best trainer I've ever ridden for. It could all blow up. It could all spill over, or they could just be shaking hands and having a laugh, and Aidan doesn't drink, but they can be laughing over a strong coffee somewhere and going, oh, we really wound everybody up. Got people talking. Fun aspect of things. Okay, anybody else to mention from the weekend? George, anybody else on your list?
Yeah, as Adam said, looking out for horses that haven't done much through the summer and look like they're going to come good now. I have two from this weekend, which have had a long time off. The first one in France was Gethin, the Gaiath of Owen Burrows. He was a novice winner on heavy ground last year. He won a novice in April, beating Sadat, who is now rated 106 and who runs in a listed race at Goodwood on Wednesday for Roger Varian and looks highly progressive. He had a setback and returned to the track after 154 days off to just be touched off by a more experienced and race-fit rival in Best Secret of Wattenans, who was third in the Golden Gates and a winner at Goodwood. We all know by now how Owen does with these older horses and getting them back and maintaining their form, and I just think he's going to be a nice horse for the rest of the year, but also a nice horse next year. And then I have one more as well. Do you want to say anything on that?
No, I was just going to say the form with the Roger Varian horse obviously looks very exciting. The Varian horse is a brother to Ed Walker's horse that they thought was a Group 1 horse.
Yeah.
Want to beat Ombudsman. Yeah, he keeps getting beaten.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of Roger's horse, who won at Sandown most recently, and Gethin had thrashed him, and Adam and I have talked about him quite a bit on the podcast, and now he's back. And that was a good run. Who's the other horse on your list?
The other horse, I know we're sick of talking about the sprinting division. But to be fair, thank God for Kaiying Rising, who's just landed in Australia for the Everest, and also Santo Rev is back this Sunday for his first start since Ascot. But back to this, in terms of England, I think William Haggis could have two in the frame for Champions Day with more thunder, but also Montasib made a lovely comeback, having been off for 336 days. He's going there fresh. He'll get his ground, or he'll probably get his ground. Before the race, he was 16-1, and after they cut him to 10s, it looked like the perfect prep race for him. And yeah.
He gave up way too much ground as well to have any impact at the weekend. He was pretty eye-catching staying on. But it's the sprint division, so I don't know if you can trust it. Is there anybody from the weekend that's in your tracker, Adam, or are you just shaking your head again about any mention of sprinters whatsoever?
I can't believe Georgia brought up the sprint division. I thought we'd agreed on the Final Furlong podcast. We were done. We're like German racing, 7 furlongs upwards. We're not interested in anything over 5. We're done with it. We don't care. It's not out. Next year's, if you're watching like the Tuesday preview for Royal Ascot, it will just skip. The King's Stand won't be there. We'll go Queen Anne, Coventry Stakes, St James's Palace. We're just going to plough through it and pretend this doesn't happen. Anyway, that's enough.
So are you suggesting that we engage in banning, like we believe in free speech, but if you say something mean, you're not going to be allowed to say that again. You can say whatever you want, but you're not going to say that on our channel.
We'll just take the Paddy Doyle approach, 7 furlongs and upwards.
That's
not
it.
Interested in this sprint gossip rubbish.
We'll just wash our hands of the sprint division. Forget it.
Couple of little things to note. Certainly agree with Gethin. His form has already taken a boost because the 6th place Walden Nebel from the Pre-Turenne at Saint-Cloud finished second to Caballo de Mar in the German St Leger yesterday. What a piece of placing this horse from George Scott. Absolute genius. Horse has won 4 handicaps, finished second in a Chester Cup, finished second in a Horse handicap, rocks up in a German Group 3, gets the perfect ride from Adri de Vries behind the pace and kicks clear to win by 3 lengths at a rather alarming SP of 39-10. So that's 4-1 in opening. Oh, when I had to write the report today, I was like, he was what price? Oh,
that was a sickener when you told me that.
Really good. This horse has won 5 times this year. He's still improving. there might well be a big staying pot in him to come. Who knows? But that's one to note. And then the other thing to note, it's just a hunch. The 2 debutants races run for 2-year-olds at Chantilly on Saturday. In 2023, they have 2 divisions of debutants races, one for colts and geldings, one for fillies. In 2023, those maidens were won by horses called Sosi and Aventura on the same weekend, both of which feature prominently in the Arc betting. This weekend, those 2 races were won by horses who both won by over 5 lengths. Wootton Centurion won the colts and geldings race by 6 lengths for Yaguda Syndicate, and Evita won by 5 lengths in the fillies race. It's just a hunch, and the 2 of them did have the run of the race, but they absolutely bolted up. It's probably too late for either of them in terms of the time of year they're starting to be considered as Group 1 juveniles. But if you got 20 minutes spare, go back and watch the 2 debutants races at Chantilly, because the 2 of them were absolutely electric in the home straight.
Okay. Those horses are going to the tracker. That is it. Thank you, Georgia. Thank you, Adam. I really appreciate your company on the podcast. Really appreciate your insight as well. There's lots more for us to talk about, including this day next week, when we'll be talking about a load of other Group 1 potential horses that have strutted their stuff over the weekend at Newmarket. Georgia, are you going racing this weekend?
Undecided, possibly, yeah.
Okay. And undecided for Adam as well, for that matter.
We're working on it. Have to bear in mind that there are 3 ladies in this house, so going racing and then going to see the fact that Gillingham are top of the league for the first time since before I was a father, I think, is kind of difficult, and the Gills will probably win out at the moment. Okay. We're currently negotiating Listowel or the Curragh and which one, but hopefully we'll be going racing as well. Whether you're going racing, watching it, whatever it is, we really appreciate your company on the podcast. Thank you for joining us. If you have not followed Georgia on X yet, you should be Georgia_Cox. Adam Mills is at GG Banker. If you haven't subscribed to the Final Furlong podcast, come on, subscribe for free. We got a load of winners again at the weekend for you. It's just ridiculous how many were going in. Andy Newton yet again delivering the goods. Jamie Wren with a 14-1 winner from his sick bed. The man just started looking at the form that night. That afternoon produces a 14-1 winner and a couple of other winners as well. George Gorman yet again back at the onion bag. Really good stuff from the lads. So join us on Thursday. We'll be previewing the best of the weekend's racing and a lot of these juvenile races as well. And you've got your 20 horses to follow for the rest of the season. Hopefully there's a few Group 1 performers and classic contenders in there. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Your support of the show means a lot to us. From Georgia, Adam and me, we will talk to you again very, very soon on the Final Furlong podcast. Look after yourself and each other. God bless.
Thanks for spending some time with us on the Final Furlong podcast. We're independent media, so if you like what we do, hit like, share, and subscribe. It's free, it's quick, and it genuinely helps. And if you enjoyed this episode, there's plenty more where that came from. Don't miss out. Subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all major platforms, and join us on the gravy train. The Final Furlong podcast, independent, unfiltered, and powered by you.